said. That blew my mind.
I never have expectations for either of you, but I'm expecting Snow Avalanche to lock in a ban sometime soon here. 15 seconds left on the clock. Rising Lotus got rid of course, that land, something that out of the jungle. Oh, the overlays are the wrong way around, so it's actually Avalanche that got rid of that land. Sorry, guys, we'll get that sorted out shortly.
I was trying to troll them a little bit.
Absolutely.
Keeping everyone on their toes, us and the viewers included.
You know what I'd like to see? Honestly, I'm not even joking about this. Waldemar Lyra. Like, I think Waldemar Lyra would be pretty monstrous, and why not?
I mean, Lyra's somebody that doesn't, I don't know if it necessarily fits Weldemar's playstyle in terms of the fact that Weldemar always wants to pick these, like, so, like, he's on Vox in the past, right?
Yeah.
And it hasn't been his best hero. Like, fairly underperforming on Vox.
You
but
could
it
certainly
seems,
make the argument it's been his worst.
Yeah, like 25% percentile.
Baron might have struggled a little harder.
But he didn't pick it continuously.
Well, it's true, but I like Weldemar on these like backline mages, and I like ones that can just do tons of burst damage like out of the middle of nowhere. It's something that I definitely think he does tend to succeed on. But Rising Lotus is going to answer with the Samuel. Once again, letting Samuel slip through the draft is always a bit risky, paired with the Finn too. We talk about B-side Samuels being a far more risky version of the Samuel because you do get to pick him up +1 that you think is a great pairing.
And Finn, we've seen, like Rekt, for example, in North America, has this build against Samuel on Finn that makes it very difficult for Samuel to do anything. If you get Finn with your Samuel, though, it becomes way more difficult to find something in draft that can handle the poke.
Yeah, I mean, maybe the next best thing would be a Lance that does the same thing and just keeps the shield facing Samuel at all times, but Lance is banned, so that's not an option. So if they do the Lyra pickup with Taka and Kestrel, this actually might be a little more dangerous on the side of Avalanche, I think, because getting to Samuel, the only person really capable of this is Taka, and Finn naturally kind of messes Taka's groove up when he's trying to go in for those dives.
He does, but, you know, it does give a little bit of freedom for this Kestrel. Like, if you're focusing on the Taka, she's getting breaking point stacks up, then she can switch on to that key target. You know, they always do have the portal as well. Just devil's advocate here.
No, I mean, the Devil does need an advocate from time to time. Saw doesn't need any advocate at all. We all know the power that this pick possesses.
I mean, this is a coin toss here, but I'm going to go with Avalanche just to create a little tension here, Fuji.
All right, well, I got heads. You have tails, as usual.
All right, well, let's see which way the coin lands, or if it lands in a crack and is on the edge, because that would be unfortunate for you both. But Snow Avalanche, Rising Lotus, this is the semifinals. Let's pass it on over to Cyber Al and Scoundrel.
Thank you so much, guys. So we're going to be going right into the game between Snow Avalanche and Rising Lotus. And between these two compositions, I personally favor Rising Lotus. Again, I'm a huge Saw fan, so I'm always going to give favor to Saw. What about you, Scoundrel?
Yeah, I think I'm in the Rising Lotus camp as well. I think you can put a lot of pressure here onto Voldemar. Now, we know what Voldemar can do on Kestrel. If you're going to give someone from EU Kestrel and you want them to carry on it, Voldemar would definitely be one of the people that I would be considering. So let's not count out Snow Avalanche yet. Kentisik has proven that he's a fantastic Taka player as well. So with the addition of Lyra, then, you know, if you can get on top of Saw, he will be very, very slow, and that could be an opportunity for Voldemar to take him out himself. You know, he likes to build a very aggressive Kestrel build, so maybe we can see that come into play. Justman, though, taking a lot of damage.
Yeah, and Bashan trying to get away from the entirety of Rising Lotus here, as they were chasing them down, not going to be able to get too much damage onto neither Kentisik or Bashan, as they just really didn't have any items under their belt to go ahead and do so. Waldemar just back into the lane, 2 weapon blades under his belt, so he's going to be poking quite heavily into Keanu Nakoa, especially with this Lyra now rotating up from the jungle. It's going to be really hard for the Saw to actually be able to get some push pressure on.
Do you remember yesterday we saw a Saw? And this is exactly what the Lyra did with the Kestrel. They just sat in lane 2 versus 1 and stopped Saw from pushing. This time you've got Lur and Justman coming to provide some protection as well. But don't be surprised to see Bashan spend a large portion of his time in lane just applying pressure to Keanu over and over again to stop him getting towards that tier 1 turret quickly.
So right now we just got the poll results, and why don't you go ahead and give those to us, Scoundrel?
Yeah, so I think it's 45-55 in favor of Rising Lotuses. I think it's pretty close between the two. But obviously just a small element of the public saying that they believe Rising Lotus are going to take this away. While I think there's a good composition here for Rising Lotus. There is a lot of single target burst, especially if Valdemar gets into a good position along with Kentisik. We'll have to see how it plays out. Don't count out Snow Avalanche just yet.
I won't count out Snow Avalanche, but one thing I want to look at about Rising Lotus's composition is that they are going to be having that weapon power saw since they do have the Samuel in the jungle. So with that in mind, it's going to be a bit interesting to see if Snow Avalanche are going to be able to really handle the heavy weapon power damage that's coming out of Keanu and Nakoa. As you can see, a lot of poke being thrown down by Bashin and Waldemar, trying to really just force out the rest of Rising Lotus from being able to push. As you can see, a nice suppressing fire coming in from Keanu and Nakoa. Kentusik rotating up from the jungle, gets found with that Malice and Verdict from Lure though. As you can see, a bit of damage going down onto Bashin as they're just constantly pushing the lane in favor of Rising Lotus. As you can see, they're just trying to pepper that turret with some damage.
Yeah, you're seeing this, actually, this is turning into like a three-man lane. Wow, a lot of damage coming down there onto Voldemar. Rising Lotus really putting on the pressure with Samuel here. Then they realize that, one of the bigger win conditions for Saw is just to be able to push in turrets very, very quickly and very, very early. And that's why everybody seems to be having this party in the lane and kind of scrapping away from the jungle. But this time, having taken Kentisik low, Rising Lotus want to try and capitalize on that and take some back camps away from him.
Yeah, and this is pretty much what Rising Lotus need to do to keep this Taka in check. As you can see, we do have a bit of a push happening here in favor of Snow Avalanche. However, not too much can actually be said about that since we already have Keanu Nakoa rotating back up to the lane. He's eating a lot of damage for his troubles, though. The Bright Bulwark comes down from Bashin as they are going to be forced to walk away as Lure and Justman did rotate back towards that side of the map.
Looks like Serpent's Mask is going to be first here for Keanu. He knows that he's going to be the target of a lot of burst, so he wants to make sure that he's going to be able to sustain as much as physically possible by having that Serpent's Mask. And you see here, he's already managed to get back towards that full HP value with just having the tier 2 lifesteal there as well. So looking pretty good here for Rising Lotus. They haven't yet managed to put enough pressure onto that tier 1 turret thus far, though, because a lot of good protection is coming out from Bashin right now.
And with Bashin sitting here in the lane with Keanu Nakoa, just kind of harassing him down and just forcing him back. As you can see, a lot of damage coming down from those glimmer shots. It really leaves a lot of room for Kentusik to keep farming up. As you can see, he does have a slight CS lead over Lure, 28-24. It's going to be interesting if that lead ends up building into something greater, because right now he is sitting on that Stormguard banner, but he also has that heavy prism completed. So it's going to be a little bit longer before he actually gets that Storm Crown in his pocket, or an Aftershock probably after that as well. So Snow Avalanche really going to have to try and utilize this Taka pick as best as possible.
So we've seen Kentisik do this quite a few times. He's gone basically Storm Guard or Storm Crown into that sort of crystal power orientated route. Looks like he's actually going to be going towards what appears to be a Shatterglass or Frostburn first. I imagine being Taka is going to be a Shatterglass. And do you know why I love that? Because they realize they're going to have a very limited time period to deal maximum amount of damage to Keanu when ever they get the opportunity. And Kentisik thinks the opportunity could be now.
And right now, Keanu Nakoa really laying waste to that turret. There is the X-Retsu onto Keanu Nakoa. Kentusik getting taken solo. Oblivion comes down. However, that last basic attack from Bashin secures the kill onto Keanu Nakoa. First blood going over to Snow Avalanche.
Exactly what we said. There's a limited time period where you can actually land the burst needed to take out Lure or Keanu, and they did it very well, Snow Avalanche there, and saved the turret as well. In goes Kentisik again.
And Lure getting taken so low. Are they going to get the kill onto Kentusik? No, they are not. Waldemar eating that last turret up, but there is a very nice force to court from Justman. However, Waldemar just having a sliver of HP to get out to safety. And very unfortunate there for Lure getting taken down with that bleed from X-Retsu from Kentusik.
Pretty good right there. It looks like they're trying to at least put more pressure onto Bashin right now, but Snow Avalanche starting off well. I think a lot of people have figured out that if you have a sword that goes weapon power and they start to push heavily onto the turret, sometimes you can just send someone like a Lyra up and you will start to put way too much pressure onto him. He just can't push as effectively as he used to be able to. Actually going to be able to... I think it only works incredibly well with ranged roamers like Lyra. I think specifically Lyra is probably one of the best at doing so because you just slow his movement speed even more, allow your laner to apply pressure to him as well, and you can see they've managed to save their turret. It's 7 minutes and Asur hasn't taken that first turret, especially as weapon power. That's a pretty big deal.
Yeah, right now it's pretty much on Rising Lotus to try and get themselves back onto an even footing with Snow Avalanche. If they're not able to get this saw rolling, especially not in the early part of this game. They're going to lose a lot of map pressure because of it. We do see Kentusik getting ready to go in, goes in right onto Keanu Nakoa with that X-Retsu. He's getting taken so low, though. Keanu Nakoa getting that Fountain of Renewal on top of himself after having used that suppressing fire, but right now Kentusik looking to try and return some more damage onto him. One shot, one kill comes out, not going to connect, but Kentusik going to return some damage onto Keanu Nakoa. The Sigil takes the kill from on the side of Snow Avalanche. That kill goes over to Bashin. Now they're chasing onto Justman. Kentusik going to be the one picking up this kill here. Never mind, that's going to be a double kill going over to Bashin. And in the lane, we do see Waldemar consistently pushing in the lane. Lur was able to, I believe he was able to get away. No, he actually got taken down by Waldemar in the lane as well. And some damage being returned onto him. He just went down at the beginning of that fight. And fighting in those choke points right now for Rising Lotus, that's what they really do not want.
What's so interesting is that I think a lot of this has been facilitated by Kentusik's build. Instead of prioritizing the actual Storm Crown, he knew that going down the Crystal Power route is probably going to be more effective, because as soon as that Serpent's Mask completed, it becomes a lot harder in an elongated fight to take down Keanu. And you're going to have Voldemar versus Keanu really in that elongated damage, because to be honest, Taka's not really designed for that. And in most cases, with the Serpent's Mask, Keanu's going to win that every single time. So Kentusik's build here has been a massive facilitating factor in their ability to win these fights and take out Keanu.
Yeah, right now, as you can see, Kentusik rotating back up. The Force Accord comes out. It is going to get crucibled. Bashin eating a bit of poke there from Lur in the back line. And Kentusik just looking for the opportunity to go in. The turret does get taken down. There's the portal into the Bright Bulwark. Keanu Nakoa getting focused on by Waldemar, and Kentusik getting taken so low. Gets the fountain popped onto him. And it's going to be Waldemar, the first one to fall in that fight, to Lur. Now they're focusing their attention onto Kentusik. They do have the flare out. They're poking him down. They should be able to get the kill onto him. And that is going to be the double kill going over to Lur. That's 2 kills finally going over to Rising Lotus as they now push into the second tier turret. This should be a very quick turret take for them.
Okay, well, Snow Avalanche, while they were doing everything right, they just somehow did everything wrong in the space of one team fight. They just didn't seem coordinated there. And you could tell because Bashin went in by himself and didn't have the follow-up from Kentusik. You know, if you go in as Larry, you need Kentusik to be following up instantaneously, because they got a lot of damage down. Had Kentusik applied his burst, they actually probably would have been able to get a kill on both Lur and Keanu, but because they didn't have Kentusik there, the fountain was able to get popped, and it brought everyone back up to a sustainable level of HP. And then afterwards, after Malice and Verdict had actually taken out Voldemar, that's when Kentusik decided he wanted a piece of the action, but it was too little too late.
Yeah, just a lot of miscommunication there in that fight. I feel like they're not going to make that same mistake again, though. I think just Bashin just pulled the trigger a little bit too early.
But has that mistake cost them? That's the issue. There was a limited time period where I actually think that they could have continued to snowball, but giving up one big team fight like that and a turret, that could be crucial. Item spikes are starting to get hit. You've got Eve of Harvest on Lur now. You've got Breaking Point on Keanu, as well as some extra shielding. I almost feel like there was a one limited opportunity for this composition for Snow Avalanche, and now they're going to find it probably very difficult.
They're going to find it difficult, and that's mostly due to the fact that they lost a lot of map control here since they did lose their tier 2 turret. But the way that the game is being played, Rising Lotus are still going to have to be extremely careful, because Keanu Nakoa, both times in the last 2 team fights, nearly gets taken down immediately by Kentusik. So Kentusik is the main focus of the fight here, at least at the beginning. And him having that Atlas Pauldron also mitigates a lot of the damage that's coming out of Keanu Nakoa.
And his sustain as well, remember that. Obviously, he relies on the speed of his attacks to make the best use out of that Serpent's Mask. Bashin again gone in by himself.
Oh, Oblivion coming down, lands onto Waldemar, pops those shields. A lot of damage being rained down by Lur, and that's going to force a potion out of Bashin, as well as the Fountain of Renewal. The gold payout does go over to Rising Lotus, and that now is where it starts to say, okay, having lost that fight and having lost 2 turrets back-to-back, now it's starting to snowball for against Snow Avalanche here. Because at this point, Rising Lotus, they're the ones that need to make the mistake. If they make a mistake, they run the risk of having Kentusik just run rampant on their team. However, otherwise, they're doing a really good job keeping Keanu Nakoa alive and allowing Lur to poke so much from the backline with those drifting Dark Malice and Verdicts.
This is the point, as well as it's nice that Kentusik's gone Atlas Pauldrons, and I kind of see that, but to make full use of their ability to burst Keanu, you have to have Voldemar in area. Voldemar does get, deleted.
Voldemar gets absolutely massacred there. That kill goes over to Keanu Nakoa. They're focusing down Kentusik. And wow, that last shot from that Malice and Verdict nearly taking out Kentusik there. This is going to be another turret. Turret number 3 going over in favor of Rising Lotus as they're now running rampant. Just one kill is all they need for them to really just pull the trigger and say, you know what, we're going to push and get something else off the map because of it.
That's Soul
And it's
for you.
really
You
clean.
one kill and Soul will take a turret from you because there's no one else there to provide the sort of a threat to him that he needs. I want to just run through my line of thought with you, Cyber, and see what you think. So, Thor here, he's got a lot of items and a lot of power behind him now. Kentusik's gone Atlas Portals. Now, there was a point in the game where the almost Shattered Glass, and then eventually Shattered Glass, was enough to burst to burst Keanu, combining that with Voldemar's damage. Now you've got Atlas Pauldrons, you haven't really picked up much extra in terms of crystal power. If you go in onto Keanu, you have to expect Voldemar to be able to follow you up, otherwise you're probably not going to kill Keanu at this point. But with a Finn, that's going to make it very difficult for Voldemar. I mean, where do they find that coordination to take out Keanu? Do they have to all barrel in through a Lyra portal?
Most likely, and what I see is them going in with the Lyra portal and getting an active camo stun with Waldemar. We do see the portal being used. Bashan going right in. Kentusik going to be looking to get into onto Keanu Nakoa with that Xretsu. There's the Kaiten as well. Oblivion getting thrown down by Lur and Waldemar in the middle of this fight, but it's going to be Keanu Nakoa, the first one to fall. Waldemar picking up that kill for himself. Xretsu from Kentusik onto Lur. Meanwhile, Justman keeping Waldemar and Bashan occupied in the backside of that fight. And it's going to be Lur completely escaping here. As you can see, they turned their attention back onto that very tanky Finn. That kill goes over to Kentusik, 7 kills to 3 in favor of Snow Avalanche. That's exactly what they were looking for. They were able to isolate Keanu Nakoa away from Justman.
Just as we said, do they all need to barrel in through a Lyra portal? They all barrel in through a Lyra portal, and it ends up working out for them. One of the main problems there, I don't know, I think Keanu popped Mad Cannon, and I don't absolutely think he needed to. I think he would have been better keeping his gun spinning at high speed and trying to sort of sustain enough off the Serpent's Mask that way. He popped Mad Cannon, and I don't think it actually helped him in any way, shape, or form. In fact, I think it was almost more of a detriment to his ability to survive in that team fight.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you there, mostly due to the fact that when Kentusik's already on you, at that point, he is going to be slowing down your attack speed anyway with that Atlas Pauldron. Mad Cannon is naturally going to slow your attack speed as well. So you want to make sure that you're just outputting as much damage as possible, and Keanu Nakoa's damage got completely mitigated there once he did pop that Mad Cannon. As you guys saw, he pretty much didn't do anything in that fight, and then there was just no room for Lur or Justman to try and turn it back around.
Absolutely. So, we are seeing Rising Lotus try to push in once more.
Seems like they're just trying to make some motions around the map, but Snow Avalanche going to be starting up the Kraken and possibly sneaking it. But at this moment, I don't think that's actually the best idea. As Rising Lotus, they have a Saw, they have a Samuel. They can at least take one turret from this Vein Crystal if they're not careful. As you can see, they know that there's no one here from Snow Avalanche. They're just going to keep going for the push.
They're going to keep going. That's crazy. They're probably just going to win the game off this. How ridiculous was that? The decision-making process with Snow Avalanche has resulted in them losing the game.
Oh my gosh. That is an absolutely upsetting way to lose on the side of not the right call. As you can see, Rising Lotus are just like, oh, they're going to try taking Kraken. Oh, Snow Avalanche. Having opted to take the Kraken was okay. You know what? Let's just go in. We have Saw, we have Samuel. We can burst down turrets, no problem.
Did they not think they should back off immediately as soon as they saw them running down lane? I mean, that was just crazy decision making coming out from Snow Avalanche and Rising Lotus.
Game 2.
The strategy of banning Baron against Avalanche, I can't help but feel is misguided after Waldemar's previous performance.
I mean, we've only seen one, to my knowledge, performance of him with Baron. It wasn't very good. Now, granted, that was week 1.
There's a reason we've only seen one, though.
They're saying, we want the best Avalanche to show up, and we will take Baron away from you so you are forced to play okay against
Well,
him.
Baron fell pretty flat for the first week, and we've seen some teams pick up and practice him. Perhaps Waldemar hasn't prioritized practice on him. I have no idea. I don't get to see their practices, but if Rising Lotus knows, maybe that's why they're pulling it off the table. We'll have to defer to them. They are the experts in their own draft. Lance coming up on the side of Rising Lotus, though, really popular first pick. Snow Avalanche, however, Lyra goes over. Pretty typical first round picks here for both teams. Kestrel always a very safe pick on this B side because you do, once again, we talk about this, you kind of pre-counter certain things like a Kroll or an Ozo to that extent.
Oh,
so.
let's not talk about that. But it's also just such a great flex pick. Like, you can take it to the lane, you can take it to the jungle, and she's incredibly strong in both positions.
You could even play her as Crystal. Not something we see. No. Very, very, very difficult to pull off with things like Contraption that exist in the game. But
I'm waiting for that roam Kestrel. You know, you just get that one CP item, full roam. Just active camos everywhere, Fuji.
Just set them up, man. Just put them all over the map.
Could be pretty good.
Well, when Kestrel comes on the board, people do kind of get the itchy finger for Catherine pick, and she does come through. Whether this will be carry Catherine or carry Lance, we will know momentarily. I do think Catherine in the Kestrel does tend to be a really good pick. It's not the hardest of counters to her, but it definitely keeps a lot of that damage coming out from going over. The Celeste pick, interesting. So we have almost a triple stun comp of sorts coming out of the side of Rising Lotus, really looking to lock down this Kestrel. That actually makes Kestrel now much harder to pull off because they've prioritized the stun and, of course, Vision coming out of Helio.
I also think it's worth noting that Lyra is perhaps the squishiest roamer in the game, and if you get one stun onto her, with this composition, she's gone. Like, there's no way she's living through that.
I mean, to be completely fair, almost if anybody gets stunned right now on the side of Snow.
Who is going to take this one home? If Rising Lotus win one more, they move forward to the finals, which would be a big performance from them. Let's hand it on over to our shoutcasters, Cyberal and Excoundrel.
Thank you so much, guys. So we're going to be looking between these two. Rising Lotus, Snow Avalanche. Game number 2. Snow Avalanche lost in a very unfortunate way last game, but I don't think they're going to make that mistake again. Just a very unfortunate shot call on their part. But Rising Lotus, with their composition, Excoundrel, do you think they're going to be able to really allow Kiana Nakoa to lay down some damage with this Celeste?
This is kind of almost an exact same copy of the composition that we saw Gangstar's Cerberus win in their second game. You just replaced Catherine for Finn. Kind of supposed to do the same job, maybe not quite as effectively as a Finn would do, but you know, it could, you know, single hard target stun could come in useful at dealing with Attacker specifically. Attacker will have more tools. Kentisik, you know, will probably be doing the same thing he was looking to do last game. He has one target this time instead of multiple targets though, so this could be a little bit better for Snow Avalanche going into this game.
And you can see Kiana Nakoa eating so much damage from this Lyra and Kestrel combination. And I feel like since Snow Avalanche opted to go for these two heroes yet again, they're so comfortable on them. As you can see, they're able to do a lot of work with these heroes. If they're able to go ahead and utilize the Taka better this time around, where you're just jumping onto Kiana Nakoa, you don't really run the risk of having a Finn land a Quibble or having a Finn land a very nice Force the Cord or something along those lines. So it leaves a lot more room for this Taka to actually be able to pay off.
I think Kentisik did an okay job at using Taka the previous game. They just unfortunately ran out of steam. And that was the biggest thing, you know, they kind of pulled their foot off the accelerator and then that just allowed Rising Lotus to get back into things. This time round, you know, they've only got that one target. And like you said, there's no Finn to pull him out of stealth. And as long as he's using his Kitans properly, he might be able to dodge most of the CC that Lance and Catherine could put down. Lur already taking lots of damage here.
Yeah, Kentusik doing a really good job just harassing Lur in his own jungle. With Justman sitting here in the lane alongside Kiana Nakoa, they're going in onto Bastion. Bastion eating a bit of damage there from Kiana Nakoa with those Heliogenesis. But as you can see, Justman eating so much damage himself. Kentusik is just taking away the back part of Rising Lotus's jungle. Just trying to deny them as much early gold as possible to set back this weapon power Lance as much as he can.
Absolutely. So, Kentisik now. He's probably going to try and steal away this camp, and he will get it. So Lur really having a lot of pressure put down to him at this point in time. I imagine Kentisik will follow a similar build path. He'll want to essentially burst Catherine as quickly as, burst Celeste as quick as possible. Voldemort takes a lot of damage from Lur there, but he won't go down, and the heals from Lyra will keep him going.
Yeah, as it seems right now, Rising Lotus just don't really have a lot of ability to maneuver around the map at this point. Lur is just forced to sit here in the lane alongside Justman to get some of that ambient gold. Otherwise, he's just going to be falling so far behind that he's not going to be able to complete any items. He notices that his back jungle has completely been taken and only just spawned. So he's at least going to be able to get some gold back in his pocket at this point. But having only about almost 1,400 gold in his pocket at 13.5 minutes, 3.5 minutes, not 13, whoa. That's really weird. it's going to really set him back, especially compared to Kentusik, who's sitting on that Stormguard banner as well as a chronograph. We do see a lot of damage going down on the Kentusik. There's the heal coming in from Bastion, who steals away the tree and with the Bright Bulwark. Now Justman is the one that's targeted here by Waldemar, as you can see, forced to just dash away. No kills going over to either side, but Snow Avalanche still getting their advantages here, taking away some more gold from Rising Lotus.
Interesting that Snow Avalanche, and specifically Kentisik, is going for the cooldown reduction first. That would lend to the fact that he's potentially going to be working towards an Aftershock, which is a little bit different from what we saw last game. I guess he knew that he needed a little bit more burst in his back pocket, so that's why he went for the Shatterglass against the Saw. So this time he's going to go around for this traditional on-hit Taka build if you go down the Crystal Power route. Or obviously he could also be building that into a Storm Crown. As I say that, I completely remember. So he could also be building that into a Storm Crown and finishing that first before deciding whether to go down a Weapon Power or Crystal Power route.
And the way he's been playing, it make more sense for him to go down the Crystal Power route anyway, especially with how often he's just willing to go in with X-Retsu onto those carries. So it's going to be hard for Celeste to keep herself alive in that regard, unless she has both Justman and Lure just instantly peeling for her right at the beginning of that fight. So Keanu Nakoa going to really be the center focus for Snow Avalanche and going to be the biggest outlier here for Rising Lotus. If you're not able to really get going on that Celeste, even late game, it's going to be hard for you to deal with that Taka.
Well, actually, without the Fin, it makes Taka's ability to roam freely trying to deal damage to Celeste that much easier. You know, Catherine and Lance will find it moderately difficult to lock him down. Blast Hammer could be useful, but otherwise, you know, Celeste is almost like a sitting duck for Taka at this point. So as long as Kentisik gets the ball rolling, and he looks like he is going down that Crystal Power route, which makes way more sense because obviously he wants to provide that burst. We saw that they had the opportunity to burst out the Saw early on, but Voldemar is down.
Yeah, Waldemar stuck around just a little bit too long. Bastion now going to be trying to poke out Keanu Nakoa, throws down the Bright Bulwark. Just a very weird exchange there. We did see Lure also going down to Kentusik, thanks to a scout trap that was very well placed by Bastion. And this Kentusik really bursted down Lure at the beginning of that fight, and he already is sitting on that Storm Crown, has the Eclipse Prism as well. Now it's them going in onto Bastion. There's the Core Collapse onto him as well. Keanu Nakoa trying to land those Heliogenesis. Not going to be enough to secure the kill. But here comes Kentusik going in right on with the X-Retsu onto Keanu Nakoa. There's the Kaiten to secure the kill. That's going to be one more kill going over to Snow Avalanche, as it is 2-1 in their favor. Lure nearly getting taken down as well. I feel like Kentusik is just waiting for the opportunity to find him in his own jungle again. As you can see, he is taking away the back, giving Bastion that Treant though, so he can heal back up and stay in the lane to keep being a nuisance.
No, I completely agree. I guess the other kind of synergy that we see between Celeste and Catherine is that she does make it easy for those supernovas to land, especially like that with the Core Collapse on Voldemar as well, but that's a fairly limited utility. You know, you can use that quite heavily in lane and maybe in smaller skirmishes. When it breaks into a straight-up team fight, you're going to have Taka doing this.
But Kentusik does get caught with that Core Collapse after they do give the kill over to Waldemar on Keanu Nakoa. That is going to be the turret falling in favor of Snow Avalanche. 3-1 in their favor. A really good start on their part, but hopefully we don't see what happened last game where they were ahead in kills, they were ahead in control, and then all of a sudden they just ended up completely falling behind because they weren't able to pull the trigger and go for these team fights and go for these long movements.
Absolutely, and now we see Kentisik going towards the Aftershock, so he's actually going to go for that second, and has got the extra cooldown reduction there as well. So going for the on-hit Taka build as opposed to going for the Shatterglass like we saw last game, which obviously you saw there. Keanu really suffered at the hands of Kentisik, and they found that opportunity to combo with Waldemar, the Glimmer Shots, while Bastion taking a lot of damage. Double Core Collapse!
And the Core Collapse does a nice, locks down Bastion for a nice amount of time. The Solar Storm coming in, nearly taking out Waldemar there. And that is going to be Rising Lotus a bit ahead here. But they are going to have to allow Keanu Nakoa to recall. And Waldemar just heals right back up thanks to having that Lyra on his side. And Kentusik just going right back to what he's been doing, going back to farming, going right back to just trying to steal away as much gold as possible from Lure. He already has that 2-level advantage onto him and has a 10 CS advantage as well. So this Taka really putting in some work. Going in onto Lure again, gets caught with that stun from Justman. Going in with X-Retsu onto Justman as well, but he did not take into account Keanu Nakoa. But here comes Bastion, And Justman taken solo. Kentusa going in with X-Retsu. There's the Kaiten. He's gonna get the kill. Gonna dodge out the core collapse. One shot, one kill comes in onto Keanu Koa, nearly taking him out. And it's more gold in the pocket of Kentusik here, as Lure eats a bunch of damage here from Waldemar as well. Kentusik does have his cooldowns available to him, uses Kaku to just try and sneak around here, looking to try and find Keanu Nakoa. He's gonna recall to safety. One more kill going over to Snow Avalanche, and they're just really putting on the pressure on Rising Lotus this time, not wanting to give them any breathing room.
And I like this because they need to continue layering on that pressure where they can, because Kentisik is one of the only attackers, I would say, in Europe that generally tends to take this crystal power route, and it's good for bursting people like Celeste, but it can fall off fairly readily if you don't continue to capitalize on that. I like that he's gone a reflex block. He, has been suspect to some of the core collapses thus far, so he's going to be able to block those out as it stands. Also needs to talk about Voldemar's build. He's finished up that breaking point now, so he will be able to continue layering on damage that adds to a sustain element for Snow Avalanche right now. And it doesn't really look like Rising Lotus can do much, because look at that. Every time Catherine looks to make an engage happen, she's just not going to find it. Active camera comes straight through.
Kentusik was just skulking around in the jungle, looking for the opportunity to go in onto Keanu Nakoa. There's a stun onto Bashin. They're focusing all of their attention onto him, and it's going to be Keanu Nakoa getting focused on by Kentusik. One shot, one kill comes out from Waldemar. Not able to secure the kill. Keanu Nakoa did get the fountain onto him. Kentusik does steal away the tree, and now they're just going to go ahead and go right back to try and engage. The heal comes in from Bashin on that Lyra, and they're just going to keep poking out the members of Rising Lotus. There's not a lot that they can do against the push that's coming in from Snow Avalanche. And on top of that, they're not getting any jungle gold at this point because of Kentusik, who's going in onto the turret. Unfortunately, takes a lot of damage for his trouble. As you can see, he is going to get the heal from that Lyra, so Rising Lotus do get a bit of push back in favor of themselves, but Snow Avalanche are still so healthy right now, and they do not have the Bright Bulwark available to them, but they are going to have it available in 3 seconds. So Lure is going to have to be really careful not to get caught. Keanu Nakoa gets caught with that X-Retsu. He's going to get taken solo. That kill goes over to Waldemar with the basic attacks. Bashin going to be trying to chase down Justman with that portal. Not going to find him. Lure going to be trying to block Kentusik from getting the kill, but he is going to get taken down. That's the bleed from X-Retsu securing that kill, and that's going to be 2 more kills going over to Snow Avalanche, as they're going to be able to take this tier 2 turret as well. So much fighting, and Snow Avalanche still come out on top after such back and forth fighting at the beginning.
Absolutely, they're just layering on the pressure. Like you said, starving gold away from Rising Lotus is going to mean that this Lance is delayed towards getting his build. He's now sitting at 2 items, but hasn't really had the time to itemize anything defensively, which is why he's actually becoming fairly squishy for Kentusik to be able to break down in terms of the damage he's putting out. And you've got to look at the fact that there is a Crucible now there for Bashin, and obviously you can't invest in the Crucible for Justman. There's not much you'd want to block, to be honest, but he's had to go for the Contraption as well to make sure he's got flares to spot out Taka where possible. But at this point, it doesn't really matter if you spot the Taka out. He's going to jump in, probably almost 2-shot Keanu, and then obviously Waldemar will already be looking to follow that up ASAP. He's now started to build some critical strike and has an Aegis, so leaps and bounds ahead in terms of offensive and defensive itemization choices.
Yeah, and right now, just the fact that Keanu Nakoa is not able to keep himself alive is the biggest problem for Rising Lotus, because that's a brunt of their damage. They have Lure, who does have the Sorrow Blade into that Tension Bow, but that's it. Once he goes in with the Impale, he doesn't have a lot of follow-up damage, and he's just not able to hit fast enough that he's going to be able to out-DPS Kentusik or Waldemar.
He's actually going into a very slippery team as well. You know, you've got Kentusik and Waldemar who are quite hard to lock down, and then really you don't want to be focusing everything onto Bashin, because if you focus onto Bashin, if you commit to a fight and leave Celeste exposed in the backline, Kentusik and Waldemar are going to leap on that opportunity to take her down.
And right now, that's pretty much what they've been consistently doing at this point. Kentusik is just really pulling his weight, rather, with this Taka. We do see another engagement from Justman, but going to get stopped by that Bright Bulwark. Keanu Nakoa gets caught by Kentusik with that X-Retsu. 1-shot, 1 kill comes out, nearly taking him out, but it's not going to be enough to secure the kill onto that Celeste. And right now, Rising Lotus are completely on the back foot here. They can't even leave the entrance of their base, running the risk of taking so much damage from this Taka and from this Kestrel. And you can just see how they're just peppering damage here and there as much as they can. They have scout traps in front of their base as well, just in case that Kentusik does try and go in and for the dive. But at this point, there isn't a lot that Snow Avalanche can't take off the map. They are probably going to end up waiting for Kraken to go ahead and actually go for that really heavy push. And it would probably be the smartest move at this point, since they're having a bit of a difficult time pushing into the base of Rising Lotus, since Keanu Nakoa has been able to stay alive in the last couple of fights.
The biggest issue is with Bright Bulwark, there isn't really a reliable way for Rising Lotus to engage. They try and run at Kentisik, he uses Kaku. They try and run at Voldemar, he uses active camo. And then they just get stuck in no man's land, where they're just prey to Voldemar's range damage. And then Celeste has already moved into an exposed position where Kentisik can jump on and do the damage that he's doing with this Crystal Power Tackle build. It's almost a lose-lose situation for Rising Lotus right now. Their best opportunity is to hope that Snow Avalanche make a mistake and then they can turn things around. You know, if they manage to lock up by some miracle Kentisik or Voldemar, then allow Keanu to do damage from the backline. That's their best opportunity right now.
And I have to ask you this question, Scoundrel. With the way this game has gone, where does Rising Lotus have any opportunity to go ahead and take this game back in their favor? Kraken's about to spawn in about 25 seconds. What can they do? They can't really push out of their base. They can't get gold. There is just nothing they can do with the composition that they've built up for themselves.
Well, when Kraken spawns, that is going to be limiting the area of engagement for Rising Lotus. So that's where they could start to land some of their skill shot CC, like the Impale. They could even try and land Merciless Pursuit if possible as well. And obviously Celeste excels in her ability to deal damage in enclosed areas like the jungle. So there could be an opportunity there, especially with Aegis having been completed on Kiana. He can block out some of the damaging abilities coming out from Voldemar if he, rather than onto Kentisik if he absolutely has to. So you can see here, this is where they're trying to find an opportunity to fight.
And we do see an Impale onto Bastion from Lure, but not a lot of damage coming in from Rising Lotus here. They're looking for the opportunity to maybe catch out Kentusik. Kraken did get started, now it's just kind of going back and forth there. And it does get reset. Now Snow Avalanche starting up the Kraken yet again. They're just trying to bait Rising Lotus in as much as possible so that Kentusik can go in right onto Keanu Nakoa. Or maybe have Bastion go and whip the portal into Bright Bulwark to lock them down. Because they're all clumped up in a group, and it would be a really, really good Bright Bulwark if it did go in right there. And Kentusik following up would do so much damage that there's 99.9% chance that Keanu Nakoa wouldn't be able to survive that time. There's the Bright Bulwark being thrown down, but Keanu Nakoa getting caught by Waldemar. Only a basic attack coming out, though. Not too much other damage. Rising Lotus looking to try and get in onto Waldemar. Some damage going in with these basic attacks, and the scout traps that they're throwing down are actually putting a nice amount of work. Kentusik gets stopped from bursting down Keanu Nakoa, though. And now they're trying to return some damage on the side of Rising Lotus. They're trying to find this Taka, not going to connect with any damage. As you can see, Snow Avalanche trying to return some damage as well. Keanu Nakoa gets caught by Kentusik yet again. Core Collapse goes down and he gets caught with it. Are they going to be able to catch him is the question. Bastion takes the kill onto Justman, and it's going to be Keanu Nakoa falling. Bastion picking up that double kill for himself. Kentusik taking the portal, trying to chase down Lure. Are they going to be able to catch him? Of course they are. That's going to be the Kaiten, and it's going to be one more basic attack from Kentusik securing the kill. Snow Avalanche getting a 3-for-0 ace.
3-for-0 ace, and they're going to be able to take the Kraken off the top of it. That was actually, for the most part, quite a well-placed fight by Rising Lotus. You saw Waldemar tried to make the flank happen onto Keanu early on. Good Githian Wolf just blocked him away. But then, for some unknown reason, Lure decided he wanted to try and take the forward movement and try to impale into the midst of the Snow Avalanche team. That's exactly what they wanted. Because when Lance uses Impale, the cast animation locks him in place for a period of time, and you saw as soon as that Impale missed, Kentisik had no mercy, straight in onto Celeste, and they then started to roll that team fight out. That's exactly what Snow Avalanche want Rising Lotus to do. They want Rising Lotus to play into them, and then when Lance or anyone isn't able to land their engage, they can just go in and take Celeste in the backline when she's isolated. This has to be somehow a total peel composition right now for Rising Lotus. They cannot look to engage themselves.
And it raises the question, with the build path that Keanu Nakoa opted for, sitting on that Eva Parvis Broken Myth, it looks to be starting to build towards that Shatter Glass. Most likely will we actually see an engagement with that portal into Bright Bulwark. Kentusik going in onto Keanu Nakoa, but eating a lot of damage in return thanks to those Heliogenesis. And Justman on the backside of this fight, and they're trying to go in onto Waldemar. I don't think he actually got the stun on it. I think it did get blocked. There's the Crucible coming out. Kentusik going in onto Lure, though. Lure getting taken solo. The fountain gets popped. Waldemar gets stealth as well. Now the Kraken going to be taking down that first turret. Kentusik also going to be trying to assist it and taking down these structures. And Rising Lotus on the complete back foot here. As you can see, that turret is taking so much damage. The turret is now going to fall. Leaves a lot of room here for Snow Avalanche to go ahead and take this game. Justman going to be the first one to fall in that fight. That goes over to Waldemar. Solar Storm comes out from Keanu Nakoa. Only hits Waldemar. Not going to be able to secure the kill. Waldemar picking up that double, looking for the triple on Keanu Nakoa. Gets the triple. That's going to be another ace going over to Snow Avalanche as they also take the victory, taking the series 1-1.
Taking the series 1-1, and Snow Avalanche, Kentisik found that right target for his Crystal Power attacker build. It worked so much better in this scenario because he only had that one target to focus. The issue when he was playing Rising Lotus in the last game was that he had both Samuel and Saw to think about prioritizing. This time, he only had to prioritize Celeste. He kept accelerating with his build. He didn't have to build Atlas Pauldrons, for instance. He went from Aftershock.
Here. Rising Lotus, what do they want to take off the table?
Baron.
Yeah, Baron.
Baron is gone.
El Baron is gone.
He's
Waldemar gonna start this tempo of this game. What do they want to go with? Lyra's on the table. They've been picking this Lyra up quite a bit.
If they do pick up the Lyra, they do concede Samuel, though, so not perhaps what I would recommend over to the B side. We did see that other teams do some work with this pick. It is kind of still the tough call, though. Like, if they're really valuing Lyra more than Samuel, then once again, they feel like they have something that can counter this pick.
I think you could go Samuel Finn here. I don't see any reason why not. Yes, Snow Avalanche feel like they have something to deal with, but they felt like Kraken was better than their base in game 1, so.
Can't count on those feelings, man. Emotions will pull you in all different directions, including the loser's bracket.
That's the truth about it. I would know. Emotions. They're a tough thing to deal with. Emotionally, this feels pretty good.
The thing is, if you don't pick up the Finn because you see the Lyra, you might assume that Finn, because people are just not really playing Lyra in lane right now. Lyra kind of assumes the roam position, so you can grab the second carry that you might think might give you the harder time, because Finn is good, but you can also end with an Arden, which is still good. A Catherine,
final pick.
Are they going to
Finn.
Ozo?
I mean,
yeah, if they don't pick the Finn, right? You get cream of the crop. You get all of your
I don't know if you've
roams
heard about this, Humanist, but the ozone layer is gone or going, so Ozo's not what we play.
Force the cord out of Jackson there.
Oh, is the Taka going to come through? If Taka does come through, we have an interesting setup coming out of Avalanche. Really, really strong poke in the lane, coming from Lyra and Adagio.
You have so much natural healing out of the Taka, too. You put double heals on top of that. It's very hard to take that Taka down if you don't burst him to 100% down.
I want to see a Fortress come out of Rising Lotus right now, and I'm not even joking. Because we've seen how much damage Kestrel, Fortress, and Samuel can do, and when you see double heal on the other side, they're going to be able to burst the Taka or Adagio or Lyra almost instantly with you.
All right, let's see who's going to manage to go forward into the finals this time around with Cyberonic Scoundrel.
Thank you so much, guys. So we're going to be looking at this third game between Snow Avalanche and Rising Lotus. I am Cyberowl, joined with the Lord and Savior X-Scoundrel, and I have to say I like the composition out of Snow Avalanche more because of what we saw previously with this double heal Taka composition and how well it played out and how he built for that sustained team fight.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think that was Snow Avalanche, so we did see it on, right? And then obviously he went down a weapon power route with the Storm Crown and went into Breaking Point straight after that. So actually forewent something like a Sorrow Blade and went basically for sustain on hit build, which actually worked out pretty well for them, like he said. He was able to sustain through team fights quite nicely. This time around, though, he's going to have a little bit of a harder target to lock down in the form of Keanu. So he should maybe be thinking about Lure. Lure could be his potential first choice, and then think about dealing with Keanu afterwards. Voldemar also, obviously, if you're focusing down Kentisik, he will be a threat from the backline with that alternating current. We know what Adagios can do.
It raises the question, though, if Snow Avalanche opted for this particular composition, how well they're going to be able to play around that Finn, because you're going to be forced to basically build that Crucible fairly early. And with the two heroes that you have on the side, Waldemar on that Adagio and Kentusik on that Taka, you really got to make sure... Pardon me. You got to really make sure that you actually keep your carries alive. And Waldemar, if he gets caught with that Force Accord, unless he's actually channeling that Verse of Judgment, chances are he's going to end up dead, especially after an active camo stun or after Lure just comes in with that Drifting Dark, landing those Malice and Verdicts.
It really depends where he uses Verse of Judgment, because you have to think about what's going through the mind of Rising Lotus. They're probably going to be fairly scared of Kentisik specifically, although Waldemar
Oh, Waldemar is going to get taken down. Those Malice and Verdicts coming out of Lure did so much damage. Kentusik now rotating up from the jungle. Going to be harassing Lure a little bit with that chitin. Not going to be finding all that much damage, though. He's sitting on 2 weapon blades and a swift shooter. So it looks like he is going to be opting for that tension bow. And maybe going for the same build path that he went where he had that other double heal composition. So
yeah,
Kentusik going to be the one to watch.
Tension bow, breaking point. I think he wove a Storm Crown in later on after he'd finished Breaking Point there. So yeah, he could very well be going down that route. He could even potentially go with Sorrow Blade into Breaking Point, a little bit more of a traditional weapon power build, as we just saw Lyra Bashin just deleted off the map by Keanu here. Keanu having a great start on this Kestrel, as is Lure on his Samuel. We got a lot of pressure onto lane, and I like that, because Bashin has been known to spend a lot of time in lane, and they are trying to exploit that.
And with Keanu Nakoa already sitting on that heavy steel and a heavy prism coming out of Lure, not a lot of room for Waldemar to actually try and successfully make these trades, but a lot of damage going down to Keanu Nakoa, as we do see Kentusik rotating up from the jungle, harassing him down with that chitin. There is the Drifting Dark. Waldemar eating a lot of damage from those Malice and Verdicts. Lure trying to trade back and forth here, landing a nice amount of poke, but Kentusik still staying here in the lane, trying to look for the opportunity to get in onto Keanu Nakoa, but he did recall to safety. No kills going to be going over to Rising Lotus here, but they're having a fantastic start to the game. No kills going back over in favor of Snow Avalanche, but I think they just need a little bit more time to ramp up.
Yeah, and also Kentusik hasn't been able to get a huge CS advantage over his counterpart in the jungle thus far as well. And Kentusik really hasn't been anywhere to be seen in the lane as it stands, and he's just been farming as best as he can. Samuel has done a very good job of keeping his back camps on rotation and also taking the front camps as and where he can as well. The Snow Avalanche are going to steal away a couple of them, however, as they now move down towards shop, and they will head back to lane after that. But that has given an opportunity here for Rising Lotus to push onto this first tier turret.
And right now, Justman eating a lot of damage. Kentusik going in onto him as well with that chitin, eating a bit of damage there from Bashin with those basic attacks, but not a lot of damage being returned onto the side of Rising Lotus. Justman gonna have to be careful not to get caught by Kentusik yet again, though. Piercing Spear and a Six Sins coming out of Kentusik, so he does have a bit of damage that he can actually take down the Finn if he's not careful and doesn't heal up. As you can see right now, they're trying to get some pressure here onto Keanu Nakoa in the lane. Waldemar just sticking around, and with the items that he has, he's not quite able to finish off his alternating current just yet. But once he's able to finish it off, I feel like Keanu Nakoa is going to have a bit of a rough time in lane, especially having to deal with both Waldemar and Bashin.
No, absolutely. I think that will definitely start to put a lot of pressure onto him. Keanu won't be, a lackey himself. He will have his Sorrow Blade soon enough, and he'll start to be hitting pretty hard thus far as well. But Voldemar obviously will alternating current. That's a pretty huge item spike for him. And it does look like Kentusik will be going Tension Bow first, like you said. And then probably, like you said, also into the Breaking Point. A mirror build of that double heal and Taka build that we saw coming out of Snow Avalanche before. And it does mean that he gives Taka a lot of sustain in fights. He can continuously proc that Tension Bow and has that element of longevity as well. As Voldemar, as I said, Sorrow Blade starts to do a lot of damage.
Sorrow Blade, on top of that, you had the Malice and Verdicts coming in from Lure, sitting on that heavy prism, as well as so much damage coming in, as well as that Piercing Shard. Just that Samuel is just going to be a little bit ridiculous to deal with here in the early part of this game, as long as they don't have any shield. The turret is going to get taken down in favor of Rising Lotus. As you can see, they're just rotating as a group and sticking together as much as possible to deny this Taka any opportunity to go for a pick.
Well, if you put pressure on early, then you are going to limit what this double heal composition can do, and that's what they are doing. Rising Lotus, they are trying to pressure lanes as much as possible, force as many objectives as they can to give themselves an element of a snowbally lead. However, Tension Bow has now been finished on Kentusik, so he has got a small item spike here where he can start to do some real damage, mainly to Samuel and Keanu. But we will start to see if they can make this work for them. I don't feel like they have the sustain to out-pressure the damage that's actually coming out from Rising Lotus right now, so they have to be very careful as to where they select their fights.
And right now, it looks like Kentusik was looking for the opportunity to go in with Xretsu onto Keanu Nakoa. Justman and Keanu are not level 6 yet, so we are not going to be seeing a one-shot, one-kill or a forced accord coming out on the side of Rising Lotus. But the one to look out for right now is Lure, who's sitting on level 7 with this Samuel, same as Kentusik, who's level 7 on this Taka. But I feel like Oblivion is going to play dividends in this matchup, especially having that combined with Forced Accord. You can zone people out completely and control their movements.
No, absolutely. So, as we progress here, it's kind of given a little bit of relief to Snow Avalanche thus far. What are Rising Lotus going to do to put pressure on to this lineup? They've got the gold mine that has started stacking up. That is nearly at full stacks right now. Probably don't want to start to fight without having an opportunity to pick someone off from Snow Avalanche, but Kentisik has got in.
Kentisik going in onto Kiana Nakoa, gets caught with the Oblivion. One shot, one kill comes out. Not going to really pick up a kill onto Waldemar, but it's going to be Lure picking up that double kill onto Kentusik and Bashin. Waldemar going to be forced to completely escape here as Rising Lotus pick up 2 kills in that fight after a very questionable engage from Kentusik. And another gold mine, or a first gold mine being started up here by Rising Lotus.
Yeah, I have no idea what Kentisik was thinking going in by himself. And I mean, essentially, they were lucky enough to escape as it was with Bashin, but Kentisik, unfortunately, I can't work out if he went back through the portal and ended up on the wrong side of things.
He did.
But that could have been the issue. He jumped back in there. I think he actually got dragged back in by a forced accord. That was it. They got dragged back in by a forced accord because Justman had just hit level 6 as well. And obviously, not many people have prioritized reflex blocks. It's why you've seen Kentisik now pick one up. He didn't actually have that finished, I believe, as that fight took place. So wasn't able to use his reflex block on that forced accord. But like I said, the damage output from Rising Lotus is just really high right now. Kentisik really needs to finish his breaking point. And a couple more items need to come down for Bashin and Waldemar to make sure that their heals are good enough to sustain this Taka through.
I feel like they're really just going to end up having to play safe in the meantime for the side of Snow Avalanche until that Crucible is finished for Bashin, because they're just going to be at the risk of getting hit with a Forced Accord or maybe getting hit with an Oblivion or an active Camo Stun. There's just so much chain CC that could be potentially coming out of Rising Lotus that they have to take into account. And right now, you can see they're looking for the opportunity maybe to go in onto Kiana Nakoa. Kentusik is just kind of skulking in the jungle and not really doing much of anything here. As you can see, he's not able to just go out and farm in the enemy side of the jungle this time around, as there's just not enough pressure on the side of his team. So Snow Avalanche really on the back foot here, as they are falling behind about 3,000 gold.
Yeah, they are starting to get crept ahead by Rising Lotus thus far. And you've got to remember that Justman, he will start throwing out forced accords left, right, and center. Crucible has just been finished by Bashin, however, so that will be a protective element right now for Snow Avalanche. But don't, expect him to fall back on the trigger, because he goes in.
Kentusik going right onto Lure and Kiana Nakoa, who are both taken so low, but the damage coming out of Lure is absurd. There's the Oblivion getting thrown down. One more Malice and Verdict would secure the kill. Kentusik going to try and get the kill. No, he is not. Lure able to keep himself alive. Kiana Nakoa going out with a one-shot, one kill. Not going to find Waldemar with it. However, they do take up 2 kills in that fight. Bashin and Kentusik yet again the only ones to fall. Waldemar keeping himself alive, but just barely. This turret is going to end up falling in favor of Rising Lotus. You can see the damage coming out of Kiana Nakoa on that Kestrel is just absolutely immense. 7 kills to 0 in favor of Rising Lotus.
I almost went down the drain right there. Justman dragging both, I think it was Voldemar and Kentisik, into the team fight. And they just immediately found that opportunity and turned straight onto Lure and Kiana, but they didn't actually coordinate their attacks, and I think they split up onto either of them. So both Kiana and Lure got taken very low, but neither of them actually went down. And in that time, that allowed them to output their constant sustained damage, which is higher right now than what Kentisik and Voldemar are bringing. And they were able to run through that team fight. Obviously, you've got to remember also Fortified Health is fantastic from Polite Company at trying to keep yourself sustained up through these elongated team fights. Now, Breaking Point has been finished by Kentisik now. So in these fights, he now has that element to keep up with what Voldemar is doing in terms of sustained damage as well. Maybe we see it make a difference.
Possibly, but it really depends on if he's able to pick off Lure at the beginning of these fights as well, because he's pretty much getting taken down by Oblivion every single time. Despite the fact that he is throwing down the reflex block, he's not reflex blocking the damage. It's just still chunking him down so much. The only thing he's reflex blocking is this being put to sleep. As you can see, it's really proving dividends here for Rising Lotus, because all they need to do is burst people down. Despite the fact that they're getting reflex blocked, they're still outputting so much damage. Their Bright Bulwark is thrown down by Bashin, as he is on the completely wrong side of his team, looking for the opportunity to portal portals over to the gold mine. There's go Kiana Nakoa. Not going to be finding any more damage onto Bashin. Kentusik just going to be farming up in the jungle. Lure going to be chasing them down with that Drifting Dark. Not going to be able to get as much damage as he would have liked onto Bashin there with that Malice and Verdict. But no other kills going over to Rising Lotus as they start up the gold mine yet again. That's going to be a very quick pickup for them. 269 gold in their pockets. And right now, Rising Lotus really looking super strong right now.
What I would have liked to have seen right there is what Rising Lotus are trying to do now, which is splitting up Snow Avalanche as Bashin takes a lot of damage. Forces, massive Forced Accord comes through. Whoa! Before I could even hand it over, just deletes 2 members off the map from Snow Avalanche. Holy moly, Cyber Elf.
Yeah, that was a really nice Forced Accord. Right into the Oblivion as well. So when Force Accord went out, Oblivion also had landed right at that exact same moment. So the burst damage that came from that was immense. And Waldemar, despite channeling that Burst of Judgment, was not able to keep himself alive. This is going to be another turret take in favor of Rising Lotus. Actually, maybe not, as Snow Avalanche did respawn. Kentusik getting a lot of damage here from Lur, though, forced to get out of dodge. As you can see, Bashan trying to keep himself alive in the process as well. Keanu Nakoa just barely able to survive, doesn't really have all that much energy, so he can't really spam those glimmer shots, but so much damage coming out of Rising Lotus, 9 kills to 0. They're really not allowing Snow Avalanche to have any room to breathe.
No, definitely not. But Snow Avalanche right now, the death timers aren't long enough to mean that they will lose much of their base. They're actually going to try and exploit some poor positioning from Rising Lotus here as Voldemar is is joining the team, and actually it's Keanu who's completely cut off. It's now, I think, potentially a poor fight for Rising Lotus.
Rising Lotus are going to end up possibly losing Just Man here. The Fountain of Renewal does get popped. Kentusik going to pick up the kill with the Chitin. Gets seen with that Scout Trap. Is he going to get taken down is the question. One more basic attack comes in. He gets killed by Lur on that Samuel. Bashan now in a really awkward position here. He's trying to get away from Lur, who's trying to cut him off. Meanwhile, on the other side, we actually have Keanu Nakoa just waiting there to take him out as he tries to run away. Bashan going to end up falling very soon after. Keanu Nakoa going to pick up that kill. 2 more kills going over to Rising Lotus, but they do finally give a kill over in the form of Just Man, but I'm pretty sure they're happy with that trade.
Yeah, they were going to be very happy with that trade. It was just that Finn managed to survive so long there because he's got Atlas Pauldrons, he's got a little bit extra health in the Oak Heart as well. That just allowed Voldemar, or rather Keanu, to come from base and actually make it to the fight before Finn had even been killed. So that actually was allowing them to join up, and obviously then 2 damage dealers, a lot of cooldowns had already been used, like the Fountain. They'd used a lot of their offensive capabilities in Kentusik. I believe he just uses Kaku as well. So it was an easy target for Rising Lotus to just go straight away, burst out Kentusik, and then try and clean up the scraps of Bashan. Very, very good play there from Rising Lotus to turn what was a potentially poor situation in their favor.
And that just goes to show how much damage is coming out of that Samuel right now, sitting on that Eve of Harvest and Broken Myth as the Aegis as well to deal with the damage coming out of Waldemar and the bleed coming out of Kentusik. So not a lot of room for Snow Avalanche to try and burst down anybody on the side of Rising Lotus, except for maybe Keanu Nakoa, but even then, he still has that Aegis as well, and he's sitting on that Weapon Infusion, so they're waiting for a fight to break out on the side of Rising Lotus. We do see a bit of damage being returned by Waldemar, but Bashan eating a bunch of folk. Burst of Judgment comes out, and it's going to reflex block the Forced Accord, but since Burst of Judgment is now down, it remains to be seen if Snow Avalanche are going to go ahead and try turning this fight. Kentusik eating a lot of damage here. Drifting Dark is not going to get thrown out yet, but Lur doing a lot of damage with these consistent Malice and Verdicts. There's the Drifting Dark. Now they're going to be going in for the chase. Kentusik eating a lot of damage. One more basic attack would have secured the kill, but he's not going to get found. Bashan going to nearly get taken out as well. Portals over the wall. One shot, 1 kill goes on to Waldemar, but does not secure the kill either. But they are going to get the turret on the side of Rising Lotus. Bashan getting so much damage dealt onto him by Keanu Nakoa. There is the X-Retsu onto Keanu Nakoa from Kentusik. Is getting taken so low. Going to be able to just barely survive thanks to Waldemar. Now Waldemar is going to be the target here. Gets taken down by Keanu Nakoa. 1 kill going over to Rising Lotus as they're now going to just keep trying to apply pressure onto Snow Avalanche, go right back into the jungle, take as much gold as possible. Kraken is now available. What can Snow Avalanche do here?
Oh, not a lot, I would say. I think this is going to be free Kraken going over to Rising Lotus. You've got to remember that Finn is such a good pick into Taka specifically, because what Taka will usually like to do is jump in with X-Retsu, then use Chitin, and then try and use Kaku to get out. You know, he wants to try and use that stealth to get out, but as soon as Kaku comes down, you can bet your bottom dollar that either a flare or, more importantly, a polite company is going to come out from Just Man, just pull him out, and that makes him a prime target for Keanu and Lur. If they haven't killed anyone, it's almost certain that Kentusik pays with his life. He's not had the best of games on this weapon power Taka. Again, it's kind of like you said, it was this composition that they played yesterday. They designed it for sustained team fights, but they're going up against a Kestrel and a Samuel. They almost can't get in range to contest them on a level that they need to, because if they do go into range, they're playing straight into the Finn, who is doing a really good job of just protecting his team against the Taka. But here we go.
Bashan eating a ton of damage here from Keanu Nakoa. Is he going to get taken down? Kentusik going to be forced to Kaku out of the fight. Now Waldemar going to get taken down as well. Burst of Judgment gets channeled. Not going to be enough. That's going to be a double kill going over to Keanu Nakoa. Kentusik going to be the only one alive on the side of Snow Avalanche. Kraken is now knocking down the doors of that Vein Crystal, and the rest of Rising Lotus are going to be following suit. This is going to be a very quick Double turret pickup for Rising Lotus. Kentusic going to be the only one alive on the side of Snow Avalanche. Goes in with Exretsu onto Lure. He's trying to take him down. Is he going to be able to is the question. There's the reflex block. No, he's not. That's going to be the ace going over to Rising Lotus. That's going to also be the Vein Crystal and the game 2-1 in favor of Rising Lotus.
2-1 in favor of Rising Lotus. It was a hard-fought game. Again, the real issue here for Kentisik was the composition made sense. It did really well with the way they ran it yesterday, but into a Finn, it is so difficult to make your Taka work because, you know, like Takas usually like to do, they're a bit like guerrilla warfare. You get in, you get out, you get your cooldown stacks up, and then you try and get in again, and then get out furthermore. But unfortunately, Finn makes that very